Hey everyone, this is K.K Abraham from Tayola. Welcome to Adobe Premiere Pro CS6 Lesson 1. Today we will learn how to open Premiere Pro, going over an interface, customize your workspace, and preferences. Now that I got your attention, let's get right to it. So when you launch your Adobe Premiere Pro, you'll be welcomed with the image box that has your recent project on your left-hand side, and below you have your new project, open project, and then help folder. We're going to start with the new project. Now, when you start with your new project, when you notice on your video render and playback, mine is grayed out. But for those who have a higher graphic card, or more advanced graphic card, you will have two different options. Now, the first option would be Mercury Playback Engine software only, which mine is grayed out too. And next, you will have a Mercury Playback GPU acceleration. Now, GPU acceleration has a much higher performance than the Playback Engine software only. So I recommend you, for those who have that option, to choose the GPU acceleration. Below, we have video display format, which is timecode, which I recommend to leave as timecode. We have an audio format, which is audio sample, which I recommend you to leave as audio sample. And capture format, which is DV, I recommend you to leave it as HDV. Now, before I go below with locations, I will kind of want to go a little bit on the scratch disk. What we have here, we have capture and we have preview. So from the video and audio on both sides, which is the capture and the preview, allows you to save your playback data onto a particular folder. Now, I recommend you to make sure that when you go to a browser, you select a hard drive or external hard drive that has enough space to save all your project. Now that we got that out the way, now we're going to go to location. And what a location does, it allows us to go to where we want to save our project file. Now that I have mine already set up, you can have yours saved on desktop or whatever you want to save it that you feel comfortable. So I recommend to save it where you have enough space or enough storage to save your project. Mine is into my desktop. So now that I have that there, I'll click cancel. But for you, you can click choose after you select whatever you want to save your project to. You want to make sure that you name your project. So I'll name mine Introduction to Premiere. And I recommend you to always name your project, so then every time when you want to open a project, you don't have Untitled all over your hard drive or external hard drive. Now we're going to click OK. And when we do that, we have a sequence. Now, as you see, the last time I went to my new sequence, I've saved my project at digital DSLR. Our preset allows us to choose a sequence for your video clips. Okay. Now, if you're not too sure which clip or which preset you want to select, you will click cancel. In order for you to click cancel, it will still take you to a sequence where you can drag and drop your clip onto a timeline and it will choose a preset for you. So let's click cancel. And now that we click cancel, we have our interface within different panels. And what I will do is that I would open a previous project so that you can get a clear understanding on what each panel is there for. So what we have here is that we have a previous project that is already open. The purpose for that, just to get a clear understanding of each panel within the interface of Premiere Pro. But before we go any further, we want to make sure that your interface looks similar to mine. So you have the same workspace and also the same panels arranged the same. Now, in order to do that, we go to Windows, you go to your workspace, and within your workspace, you go to reset current workspace. So when you click on that, you will have a warning to let you know if you want to reset your workspace. You click yes. Now, when you do that, your workspace should adjust similar to mine. Now, in case if you don't have the same workspace, what you do is that you go to Workspace, you go to Windows first, sorry. You go to Windows, you go to your workspace, and from there you click on Editing. And click on Editing gives you the workspace for you that looks similar to mine. Now, the first we want to do on our upper left corner is our source monitor. Now, our source monitor allows us to select our in point and our out point of our source monitor of our clip so we can drag and drop onto a timeline. Next, we have our program monitor that allows us to view all our final cuts, or let's say changes from our edits, so that we can view it into our program monitor. So our program monitor allows us to view all the final edits and changes from our timeline. Now below, we have our timeline that I mentioned earlier, also known as a sequence. So within our timeline, you have different types of clips that you can add onto where you can make different cuts and edits. In between, we have our toolbar. Now our toolbar, when you hover your mouse over a tool, you have the name of the tool and the keyboard shortcut beside it. Now what we have beside the toolbar, we have our project panel. Now a project panel is like a container when you add different types of files onto your panel. So from your video clips to your still images and so on and so forth. We also have in the bottom, we have an icon called New Item, which when you click on it, it gives you tools that you can use onto your timeline. When you click on your new item, it will load onto your project panel. Beside our new item, we have our new bin, also looks like a folder, but it's called a new bin. And when you click on it, it gives you a bin-like image that loads onto your project panel. You can click on that and you can click delete. Also, I forgot to mention, we have our volume meter that measures our audio. Now that we understand each panel and its purpose, there's a lot more panels than this, depending on which workspace you're working on. If you go to your Windows, we have here more panels that you can select from. So now that we have the panel aspect out the way, we can now go in a little bit more on the tab that we have within our panels. So what we have here is that we have different tabs that added onto your panel, as you see here. And when you hover your mouse in between each panel, it gives you an icon where you can kind of adjust, also known as customizing your workspace. Now, each panel, as you see here, you can take them out, you can drag, and you can place them in where you want to place it to. You could also drag one of your panels. Let's say I drag my bin, my project bin, and I drag it right beside a source monitor. Now, when I do that, you have a purple icon, you have a purple highlight mark that lets you know where your tabs would be located to. So if I let go, it will be in the same tab as my source monitor. Now I can have it in between my source monitor and my program monitor. And when I do that, you see that my project bin is in between my source monitor and my program monitor. I can also adjust the size by squeezing the two together. Or my personal favorite is when I have my project bin right beside the source monitor. I'm also going to adjust that as well. And the purpose for that, what I like to do is that I like to look at the different clips that I have, and I like to just click and drag and drop onto it. So it's a lot more easier and convenient for me. Now, as you see here, I have different panels and tabs all over the place. Now, what we learned earlier is that you can reset your workspace. So when I reset my workspace, this is how it actually looks. So I go again onto my window drop-down menu. I go to Workspace, and I want to go to reset my current workspace. So when I reset, it's letting me know that it's an editing workspace. So when I click on my reset current workspace, I click yes, and it brings back to normal. It brings back where it was the first time. So now we're going to look into preferences. We're going to look to preferences to see where it's located so we can learn how to make changes within our workflow. For Mac users, when we go click on Premiere Pro, you'll see an option where it says preferences. and you have your preferences options here. For PC users, you go edit, and it should be all the way down to the bottom, the last option down to edit drop down menu. Now, when we go to preferences, you have different types of options or menu there. We just click on general, and when you click on general, you still have the same amount of menus beneath general. Now, when it comes to preferences, it allows you to kind of look more into the technical side of Premiere Pro and also the default settings that's there for you. Now, we're going to look at general. You see general, you have your video transition default and your audio transition default, and also your still image default as well. So now what we have here, we have about 150 frames. That means within 30 frames, it means it'll be 5 seconds. Now, by default, whatever still images you have on your timeline, it'll give you 5 seconds automatically. Now, you can change that to whatever you see fit, but I recommend you to leave it as default settings, to its default setting. I'm not going to go to each and every one options here for you, but I really want to show you the ones that I seem to be very important, and just for you guys to get a quick idea on what each preference could benefit you on. Now, you go to brightness. Now, if I go and have the brightness all the way to the lighter side, you'll notice that your interface becomes very bright, almost white. It changes its own color. And for that, I recommend you to kind of leave it for default settings, because the brighter you have it, the more your eyes will be fatigued, and it could kind of be annoying, kind of working on your project for hours in. And so for that reason, I recommend to have it as default. If anything, just kind of slightly a little darker. That's what I prefer. Next, when you go to you could go to your autosave. Now, autosave is what I find very important. Now, for preferences, you should have your automatically save project box checked. So it automatically saves your project for you. Now, what I have here, of course, is save every 5 minutes and have your maximum project every 10 minutes. I recommend to have that exactly it. This is exactly the settings. And the reason is that for every 5 minutes, you will have your project saved, and it'll give you 10 different versions. Now, let's just say if anything happens while you're working, you have your project saved for the first hour, and you have an outage. And because of that, it shuts down your computer or your Mac abruptly, and you want to go back to it. So when you turn your computer back on, you can go back to your 10 different types of versions within that particular project, and you can click on the latest one to continue on your process. And that is very helpful. So that's why I recommend to make sure you have a project every 5 minutes for a maximum of every 10 versions. Now, the rest, I want you guys to take the time to look more into each of these menus so that you can actually get more ideas and more understanding on Premiere Pro technical side. Now, when it comes to playback, these are for those who have more than one monitor. You have one monitor that works as your Premiere Pro interface, and you have another monitor that works as your program monitor, so you can have a better view of the projects you're editing out. Okay? So to go back, I want to make sure that you guys take the time to look through each of the preferences, and kind of take the time to have the knowledge and learn at least something from each preference, so you guys can have more in-depth knowledge within Premiere Pro. So a quick recap of what we just learned today. We just learned how to open Adobe Premiere Pro. We got through learning each panel within our interface. We learned how to customize our own workspace. And finally, we looked a little bit into our general preference. I hope you guys learned some of these steps. In lesson 1, if you have any questions or comments about this tutorial, please leave in the comment section below. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. This is K.K. Abraham for Tayola, and I'm telling you to leave your mark. Take care.